How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be looking at what seems to be the Video Games Awards exposed, and not for so much what everyone is assuming, the Xbox tax, but more importantly, how idiotic and unplanned and unmanaged this thing actually is. Now, we already know about the coach who got nominated, then came out and said, "Hey, buddy, I'm not even a coach. Can you please remove me?" So I'm not even going to get into that, but the whole conversation now revolves around Dave the Diver. Now, this is actually really important, as I'm going to get to later on, because there's some serious implications here and serious questions need to be asked. But it seems like, objectively, the actual responsibility is being passed on by Jeff to other people, in particular, the 120 judges who are voting for this to happen. Now, this is actually quite bad. This is actually quite, honestly, pathetic. But let's get into it. But before I do consider leaving a like if you are enjoying this content. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does help the YouTube algorithm recommend this video to other people. We are trying to hit that 350 likes. Let's see if we can hit that challenge. And of course, if you are a returning viewer, or if you're a returning viewer or simply just found this channel for the first time and are enjoying the content, do consider leaving a sub. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and the channel growth. And it really does help me hit that milestone of 6,000 subs and hopefully my 7,500 subs by the end of the year. Right, so on with the video. So as you can see over here, Jeff Keighley has shared his thoughts on the debates surrounding Dave the Diver's nomination for Best Indie Game at the Game Awards. Now, this is actually a pretty, really bad way for Jeff Keighley to go. Instead of actually owning the mistake and saying, we made a mistake, it's fine, we're human, it's fine. He's waited weeks to come up with this response because obviously he would have heard of all the things happening with, Dave the Diver. Also with the actual nomination for the coach that isn't a coach. But this is actually really bad, right? There's real problems here because in the 2-3 weeks that he's had to conjure up a response, his response to this was, look, it's a great question. He replied, independent can mean different things to different people, and it's sort of a broad term. No, it really isn't. Independent just means you are basically on your own without control of anyone else. There is no real broad term to this. This is just copping out and trying to find an excuse outside of saying, hey, look, I made a mistake. Hands up, it was a mistake. We can't really change it now. It is what it is. You can argue, does independent mean the budget of the game? Does independent mean where the sources of finance was? Does it mean the team size? Is it the kind of independent spirit of the game, meaning a smaller game that's sort of different? No, it actually means that the game is built without the influence of anyone else, outside influencers. So no publisher of any kind is working with that developer to make this game. It is an independent game. It is pretty much said in its name. And, I don't like the fact that he's decided to push this forward. He continues saying, I think everyone has their own opinion about this. There really isn't an opinion about this. It's a factual thing. And we really defer to our jury of 120 global media outlets who vote on these awards to make that determination of is something independent or not. So essentially what he's saying here is, I just left it to them. They're the ones that made the nominations. I'm washing my hands with this. If you have a problem, go to those 120 and have a go at them. I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want any stain to come to my Video Game Awards because as far as I'm concerned, I had nothing to do with this. My hands are clean. Go away. When it's your show, you had weeks in advance, months to prepare this list, and you couldn't do your due diligence to actually make sure that the games and the people that were being nominated were who they said they were, what they said they were, or what you assumed they were? Come on. At least accept the responsibility that you screwed up and move on. It's a genuine mistake. I mean, it can be a genuine mistake, right? It can be. But by his own definition, what happened 3 years ago then? Ori at this point should have been nominated for Game of the Year, right? Or at least Independent Game of the Year, because Ori falls into that category. But no, because it was an Xbox game, that got instantly thrown out. So why is this one, which is, published by not a small company either, it's published by NEXON, one of the biggest, companies out there. It's not like a small third party, small indie company that you have to feel sorry for. No, NEXON is a giant company out there that has huge amounts of money, huge amounts of funding. So what makes Dave the Diver different to Ori from 3 years ago? He immediately turned around and said Ori, which was developed, almost like an indie game, was not available to go in there because of Microsoft. So why is Dave the Diver now? Why is the goalposts moved? And now that the goalposts have moved and he's been exposed for his, essentially just bullshit, I guess. Now he's saying, well, it's not on me, even though I'm the one that moved the goalposts. It's on the 120. Go blame them. Don't come to me. I've got nothing to do with this. He continues, in other industries, sometimes there are things. I think in the film industry, the budget can't be above this amount of dollars or it's independent. So I don't know. Some people have said Larian with Baldur's Gate 3, that's an independent game. Kojima Productions with Death Stranding, some people say that's an independent game. And even though it's an independent studio, of course it's funded by PlayStation. So it's no longer independent. If it's funded by PlayStation, if it's funded by another company, it's not independent. If Baldur's Gate 3 was funded by themselves, by Larian Studios only, it technically would fall within the independent category. But Dave the Diver was funded by NEXON. It cannot be independent. He is trying to move the goalposts and shift the blame, when in real life he should just, the reality is just accept responsibility that you yourself screwed up. But he is so scared of making his show, the Video Game Awards, a mockery, and what he's doing inadvertently is actually making it an even bigger mockery than it already is, by not accepting responsibility, by not holding his hands up and saying we made a mistake and moving on. If he had acknowledged that they screwed up, I don't think there'd be the outrage there is now. People would have just said, you know what? He's owned up to it. He's made a mistake. Next year, he'll make sure that this doesn't happen. And then people will be looking next year to make sure if this mistake would happen again. And if it didn't, happy days, everyone moves on. But since taking over from E3, he's had this complete ego about him that he feels he is completely dethronable, untouchable, and that his show is the greatest show on earth. And quite honestly, it's about high time that another show, or maybe even an E3 version 2 comes along to challenge what he's doing. Because at this point, I think the longer he's in this industry, the longer he's doing what he's doing, the more blasé and arrogant he's going to get. I would have had much more respect for him if he just came out and said, hey guys, look, I really apologize. Dave the Diver slipped through our checks. Yes, you're right, it's not independent. There is no defining or definition or vagueness about it. It simply isn't an independent game. But as such, for this year only, it's going to be in there because the votes have already been cast. Now, if they haven't been cast, then remove it. At the end of the day, that is the way you should be approaching this. But if they have already been cast, then it's going to be in there. Votes are private, right? So you don't actually know who's voting for what. The votes are just put into the ballot and off it goes. But I don't know. To me, this is just really bad. From Jeff Keighley, I expected more. I don't know why I expected more, but I really expected more. And, for him to come out and say just rubbish like this, I think is not only disrespectful to himself, but to his community, to the people that are organizing the show. It basically makes the whole thing completely and utterly just pointless. There is no reasonable definition of independent game that could possibly apply to Dave the Diver. Not too late to swap that with Pizza Tower. But he chose not to. Even when it first came out, this was something he could have instantly changed and asked people to go back in and update their vote. But no, he did not do that. Readers added context. Dave the Diver is technically not an indie game. The vice president of Nexon, the South Korean video game publisher behind Dave the Diver, Kim Dae-hwan, has stated that it may look like an indie, but it's not necessarily so. So, I don't know. To me, it's bad. It's really bad. But even something like Dredge is published by Team 17. So is that independent or not? Because you have a publisher. If it's got a publisher's backing, it is not independent. Independent means they are doing it themselves. That is literally, I mean, if they're receiving any money from these publishers, it is no longer independent. The whole concept of independent is to not get outside help. Simple as that. It's that simple. There's no two ways about this. You know, it's not rocket science. But he's now trying to find every single loophole he can find to prove himself correct because he doesn't want to apologize. But the fact that Dave the Diver was on the list meant that out of all the independent games that the jury looked at, or what they thought were independent games, that was one of the top 5 they looked at this year. But it's not independent. I don't know. To me, this is really bad. I think he should have came out and just apologized. I think he should have came out and just said, look, guys, I made a mistake. Our sorting panel made a mistake. It's an honest mistake. But right now, what it looks like is he's willing to move the goalposts for an indie game made by Nexon, which now no longer is an indie game because it's not independent, right? Because it's made by Nexon. But when it come to Microsoft with Ori 3 years ago, that goalpost didn't move at all. It was a hard no. You know, this also goes back to like a similar situation with Forza Horizon, right? Forza Horizon 5, they said no, it missed the deadline. But the deadline date was moved for God of War Ragnarok. So tell me how this show isn't the biggest joke of them all. Tell me how this show just isn't a show that's engineered to pamper his ego and, you know, bolster the finances of the companies that he supports personally. You tell me, because at this point, I just don't know. If it feels weird. If I made this mistake, I would own up and just say, I made a mistake. I'm only human. Our sorting team made a mistake. What do you want me to do? But instead, he's doubled down on this shit. He doubled down, tripled down, and tried to make excuses. And then, to exonerate himself from all blame, he blamed 120. How disrespectful is that to your jury panel? How disrespectful is that to the people that have taken their time at your behest to come and do those votes? You've basically thrown all of them under the bus. You've basically said, not my problem, go to them. You pretty much did what Lena Khan did at the trial when she was in front of Congress. It wasn't me that wanted to take them to court. It was all them. Remember? How is this any different? Man, this guy's... all he cares about right now is his show, making sure that there is no bad name to it, but all he's doing is adding more tarnish to the Video Game Awards name himself. I don't know. That's my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that discussion, and I'll see you in the next one. Remain legend.